My name is Sarah, and I am 34 years old. I have the honor of being the youngest director in the history of Lakewood General Hospital. However, 4 years, my sister Emma remained unaware of this fact. A decade ago, I made a deliberate decision to keep my achievements hidden. Instead of sharing my success with her, I allowed her to believe that I was merely a waitress. It wasn't because I was ashamed of my past. Far from it. During my university years, I had indeed worked as a waitress, a job that helped me fund my education, and I took pride in it. But for Emma, that role had become my entire identity, a label she used to look down on me. And for years, I played along. Welcome to the Soulful Stories channel. Subscribe today and stay updated. Never miss a single story. Are you really planning to work as a waitress for the rest of your life? Emma asked, wrinkling her nose in disapproval as she helped me pick out my wedding dress. I can't believe Michael actually wants to marry you. Michael, my fiancé, was an exceptionally skilled neurosurgeon. We had met 3 years ago when he started his residency at the hospital. Of course, he knew exactly who I was, the director of Lakewood General Hospital. He loved me for who I was, not for any title or position. But Emma had no idea. Honest work is nothing to be ashamed of, Emma, I replied, admiring the elegant white gown in the mirror. Oh, please, she scoffed, rolling her eyes dramatically. My husband Oliver is a plastic surgeon and makes a fortune. Do you even realize how much my handbag costs? Oh, I knew. I was well aware that Oliver had applied for a position at my hospital just the previous week. His interview was scheduled for Monday, 2 days after my wedding. I sighed, struggling to maintain my patience. Why can't you just be happy for me? Happy for you? She laughed mockingly. It's humiliating. Michael's entire social circle will be at the wedding. Doctors, their wives, and then there's my sister, a waitress serving tables. What an embarrassment. I chose not to respond. I had concealed my true position for years for a reason. After our parents passed away, Emma became obsessed with social status. She married young, selecting a promising doctor, and from that moment on, she viewed those she deemed beneath her with disdain. I, on the other hand, took a different route. I pursued a medical degree, specialized, and worked tirelessly to reach the position of hospital director. Yet, whenever Emma boasted about her seemingly perfect life, I simply smiled and allowed her to believe I was nothing more than a waitress. The truth was, I had been a waitress, but that was only a small part of my journey. I had earned my success through hard work, and I never felt the need to prove anything to her or anyone else. The day of my wedding finally arrived, and everything was perfect. The church was adorned with white roses, soft music played in the background, and the guests were elegantly dressed. At the altar, Michael stood, his warm smile lighting up the entire room. But just as we were about to exchange vows, Emma suddenly stood up. This is ridiculous, she shouted, her voice cutting through the serene moment. This waitress doesn't deserve to marry a doctor. Michael, you're making the biggest mistake of your life. A stunned silence fell over the church. My heart pounded in my chest, but before Michael could react, I raised a hand to stop him. Emma, I said calmly, my voice steady despite the situation, sit down. No, she insisted, her voice growing louder. Everyone needs to hear the truth. My sister didn't even graduate college. She's been lying to all of you about who she really is. Whispers rippled through the crowd, and I glanced at Oliver. He looked mortified, shrinking into his seat. He knew the truth was about to surface, and he was well aware that his job interview with me was scheduled for Monday. Emma, I repeated, striving to keep my composure, please don't do this. Michael could no longer contain himself. Emma, he said, his tone firm, I think you should. At that moment, the church doors burst open with a loud bang, cutting him off. Dr. Patterson, the chairman of the hospital's board, rushed inside. Dr. Thompson, he called, addressing me by my professional title, drawing every gaze in the church toward me. Emma froze. Do what? She murmured, her voice laced with disbelief. Ignoring the weight of the moment, Dr. Patterson hurried toward the altar. Director, there's been a major accident on the highway. We need your authorization to activate the emergency response plan immediately. I took the documents from him, fully aware that every eye in the room was now fixed on me. Emma's face had drained of color, her lips quivering as she absorbed what was happening. "Director," she echoed in shock. Turning to Michael, I gave him an apologetic smile. "I'm sorry, my love. Duty calls." He smiled back, his understanding unwavering. "Go save lives. We can finish this when you return." I turned to the guests, still processing the unexpected turn of events. "I apologize for the interruption. There will be a short recess while we handle this emergency. Please enjoy the cocktail hour." As I made my way to the exit, I paused beside Emma, who remained frozen in the middle of the aisle. Leaning in, my voice was soft but firm. "By the way, dear sister, your husband has an interview with me on Monday. I do hope he's more professional than you." Leaving her speechless, I walked out of the church. But this was only the beginning. Emma had no idea what her spectacle at my wedding had set in motion. Emma gasped. She was the clinic's administrator, the one who turned it into a front for Oliver's illegal surgeries. "I'll send you the documents," I added smoothly. "Since you're so passionate about exposing the truth, I'm sure you'll want to clear this up right away." I ended the call, turning back to Oliver, who looked like he might collapse. "Now, Dr. McCarthy," I said coolly, "where were we?" "Please," he whispered, his voice trembling. "Can we come to some sort of agreement?" "An agreement?" I asked, pulling another document from my desk. "Something like this?" It was a resignation letter, already drafted, with his name neatly typed at the top. "If you sign this, resigning quietly from your clinic and returning all the money you've stolen from insurance, we can avoid this escalating further." "But what about the job here?" he asked, his voice a mix of desperation and confusion. I gave him a thin smile. "Oh, did you really think there was an open position? I'm sorry, but we don't hire doctors with a history of fraud." The door to my office flew open. Emma stormed in, her makeup streaked and her hair a mess. "You can't do this to us," she screamed, her voice shrill. I sighed, looking at her with mild exasperation. "Remember when you told me at my wedding that I didn't deserve to marry a doctor? Well, turns out you were right. I didn't just marry a doctor. I married an honest man who values integrity as much as I do." Melissa appeared in the doorway, glancing at the scene with a raised brow. "Should I call security, Dr. Thompson?" "That won't be necessary," I said calmly, watching as Oliver signed the resignation letter with shaking hands. "Dr. McCarthy was just leaving, and my sister will be accompanying him." Emma's eyes blazed with fury as she hissed, "This isn't over." I tilted my head, watching them leave. "Oh, but it is. And it's only just beginning." What Emma didn't know was that the fraud investigation was already underway, and the investigators would be arriving at her clinic this afternoon. The next morning, as I prepared coffee, Michael wrapped his arms around me from behind. "Are you watching the news?" he asked, nodding toward the television. On the screen, a reporter stood outside Southview Aesthetic Clinic, the headline boldly reading, "Prestigious Clinic Under Investigation for Insurance Fraud." "Emma's been calling all night," I said, turning off the television. "She left 47 voicemails." Michael kissed my cheek, his voice gentle. "Did you listen to them?" "Only the first one," I said with a small smile. "She went from calling me a vindictive witch to begging for help in a matter of seconds." My phone vibrated again, this time a text message lit up the screen. "Please, sister. We're losing everything. Mom and Dad wouldn't have wanted this." The words stung more than I cared to admit. I felt the anger simmering within me, threatening to boil over. Now, after everything, now she remembered our parents? Michael, ever sensitive to my mood, tightened his embrace around me, his hand brushing lightly against my shoulder. "You don't have to respond," he murmured, his voice calm and soothing, the opposite of how I felt. "Oh, but I want to," I replied, my voice tight. I picked up my phone and, with a sharp inhale, dialed her number. She answered on the first ring, her voice frantic, desperate. "Sarah, thank God you picked up. We need your help, please. We're losing everything." I didn't let her finish. The bitterness in my chest was sharp. The investigators are going through your records, I said, cutting her off. They're finding all the cosmetic surgeries you billed as medically necessary. There was a long pause on the other end. I could almost hear her trying to gather herself, the weight of the situation crashing down on her. It was Oliver's idea, she blurted out, her voice tinged with panic. I was just the administrator. I only signed the papers. The same administrator who boasted at every family gathering about her six-figure salary? I asked, my voice laced with cold disbelief. You're telling me that was all Oliver's doing? But you took every opportunity to tell everyone how much money you were making off it. Emma's voice cracked, the tears flowing now unmistakable in their raw, guttural sobs. Please, they're going to take everything. The house, the cars, our entire life. They'll seize it all. I couldn't help the sharp, almost cruel edge to my words. The designer handbags. I suggested, my tone cutting through the air. The ones you were so proud of? The ones that cost more than what a waitress would make in a year. I'm sorry, is that what you want to hear? She begged, the apology barely coherent through her sobs. I'm sorry for humiliating you at your wedding. I'm sorry for treating you like dirt for all these years. But please, Sarah, please help us. I sank deeper into the couch, my fingers white-knuckling the phone, my body tense as I steeled myself. Emma, do you know why I kept my position a secret for all those years? I asked, my voice quiet but full of emotion. She hesitated. To get revenge? No, I said, my voice firm now, the calmness masking the years of frustration. I wanted to see who you really were. Every time you belittled me, every time you mocked my job as a waitress, you showed me exactly who you are. You made it so easy for me to see the kind of person you've always been. Sarah, she started, but I cut her off before she could finish. And you know what else I discovered while investigating Oliver's fraud? I continued, my voice unwavering. Several of his patients suffered severe complications after his surgeries, disfiguring complications. People trusted him with their bodies, and he put money before their safety. And you were the one who helped make all that possible. She started to shout back, but her voice faltered. That's not my fault, she protested, her voice panicked, defensive. Isn't it? I asked, not letting her off the hook. You ran the clinic. You saw the patient complaints. You knew about the complications, but you were too busy flashing your new handbags and talking about your lavish lifestyle to care about any of it. There was a long silence on the other end of the line, and in that moment, I almost felt a sense of satisfaction at her inability to defend herself. Sarah, she whispered, her tone now small as if the weight of her actions had finally broken through her defiant exterior. Goodbye, Emma, I said, my voice final and resolute. I hope prison teaches you a thing or two about humility. Without another word, I ended the call, turning to Detective Patterson, ready to sign my statement. But there was something that still lingered deep inside me, a quiet satisfaction that, no matter what happened next, I had made the right choice. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed the story, don't forget to like this video and subscribe. This is Soulful Stories, where love and justice always prevail. See you next time.